The conference room fell silent as Admiral Zexther entered. His 4 eyes scanned the assembled representatives from across the Galactic Empire. 23 species, hundreds of worlds, all waiting for answers. "We're losing," he said simply. No one argued. The Void Collective had swept through the outer rim like a plague. 12 systems gone in 6 months. The Empire's fleet scattered and broken. Ambassador Thriss from Kellen Prime clicked her mandibles nervously. "Admiral, surely our combined forces have failed." Zexther's voice carried no emotion, just facts. "The collective adapts faster than we can strategize. They learn our tactics within hours, our technology within days. We throw everything at them and they just get stronger." He pulled up a holographic display. Battle after battle, defeat after defeat, each one more devastating than the last. "There's a pattern here," said Commander Vril, his scaled hands gesturing at the data. "Every species that joins the collective becomes part of their hive mind. They gain all our knowledge, all our capabilities. We're literally feeding them everything we know." "So what do we do?" someone asked. "Surrender?" Zexther's expression hardened. "No, we adapt. We try something new, something they won't expect." He pressed a button and a new image appeared. A blue and green planet, small, unremarkable. "Earth," Zexther said. "Third planet from a yellow star. Species designation, human. They applied for membership 7 cycles ago. We rejected them." Confused murmurs rippled through the room. "They're primitives," Thriss said. "Barely spacefaring. No advanced weapons, no significant technology. Why would we?" "Because of how they fight," Zexther interrupted. "I've spent the last month reviewing every conflict in human history, every war, every battle, and I found something interesting." He pulled up more data. Thousands of years of human warfare scrolling past. "They lose constantly," Vril observed. "Their casualty rates are absurd." "Keep watching," Zexther said. The data kept flowing, and slowly a pattern emerged. Humans lost battles, but they won wars. Again and again they'd face superior forces, superior technology, superior numbers. They'd get crushed, scattered, nearly destroyed, and then they'd come back. "They don't adapt like us," Zexther explained. "When we face a superior enemy, we analyze, we calculate. We try to match their capabilities through technology and tactics. Humans do something different. They improvise, they cheat, they break rules we didn't even know existed." He showed them examples. A primitive human army defeating an advanced one by pretending to retreat, luring them into an ambush. Another group using wooden horses to infiltrate a fortified city. Farmers defeating trained soldiers with guerrilla tactics. "This is their weapon," Zexther said quietly. "Unpredictability, chaos. Creativity born from desperation. The collective can adapt to anything logical, anything strategic, but humans don't follow logic when they're cornered, they do the unthinkable." "You want to recruit them," Thriss said slowly, "to fight the collective." "Not recruit, partner. We give them access to our technology, our resources. In exchange, they show us how to fight without being predictable, how to win when you shouldn't be able to." "This is insane," Vril said. "They're barely out of their own solar system. What could they possibly—" "Everything we're not," Zexther cut him off. "Look at this." He showed them a human military doctrine called asymmetric warfare, then something called special operations, black ops, psychological warfare. Humans had spent millennia finding ways to defeat enemies they had no business beating. "The collective expects us to fight like rational beings," Zexther continued. "With honor, with strategy, with predictable tactics based on sound military theory. Humans don't care about any of that. They'll do whatever works, no matter how crazy it seems." The room was quiet for a long moment. "Send me," said a voice from the back. Everyone turned. Captain Yenna stood up. She was young for a Valorian, barely past her first century, but she'd survived 3 encounters with the collective, more than most could say. "I'll go to Earth," she said. "Make contact, evaluate them personally. If they're what you say they are, Admiral, we'll need someone who can work with them, someone who can think outside standard doctrine." Zexther studied her. "You understand what you're volunteering for. These humans are volatile, unpredictable, dangerous even to their allies sometimes." "Better dangerous and unpredictable than extinct and predictable," Yenna replied. 3 weeks later, Yenna's ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. She'd spent the journey studying everything available about humans. Their history, their culture, their wars. It was terrifying. These beings killed each other over everything. Resources, territory, ideas. They'd nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, environmental collapse. And somehow they were still here, still fighting, still surviving. "Captain, we're being hailed," her communications officer reported. "Multiple sources. They seem excited." That was an understatement. Earth's communication networks lit up like a supernova. Every government wanted to talk. Every news organization wanted interviews. Every civilian with a transmitter wanted to say hello. Yenna had met hundreds of species during her career. Most first contacts were cautious, formal, measured. Humans were apparently incapable of playing it cool. She chose to respond to the United Earth Council, their closest thing to a unified government. "This is Captain Yenna of the Galactic Empire vessel Starwind, requesting permission to establish diplomatic relations." "Permission absolutely granted," came an immediate reply, male voice, practically vibrating with enthusiasm. "This is Secretary General Chen. Welcome to Earth, Captain. We've been hoping you'd come back." "Come back. After we applied for membership," Chen explained. "We were disappointed when you rejected us, but we understood. We're still pretty new at this whole space thing." His tone was friendly, self-deprecating, not at all what she expected from a species facing potential extinction. "Secretary General, I need to speak with your military leadership, all of them, as soon as possible." A pause, then more cautiously, "May I ask why?" "Because the galaxy is at war and we need your help." 12 hours later, Yenna stood in a secure facility somewhere called the Pentagon. The room was packed with humans in various military uniforms, different nations, different branches, all staring at her with a mixture of curiosity and intensity. She didn't waste time, she showed them everything: the Void Collective, the conquered worlds, the failed battles, the Empire's desperation. "We're losing," she said, echoing Zexther's words, "and we need allies who can fight in ways the Collective won't expect." A human general raised his hand, older male, gray hair, scars on his face. "Captain, with all respect, you've got ships that can cross the galaxy in days. Weapons that can crack planets, energy shields, AI, what could we possibly offer you?" Yenna pulled up human history on the display. "This," she said, showing them the Trojan horse, "and this, the Revolutionary War, and this, Vietnam, and this, Afghanistan, and dozens more. You've spent your entire existence fighting enemies you had no right to beat and winning anyway." She looked around the room. "The Collective adapts to logic, to strategy, to predictable military doctrine. They can't adapt to chaos, to improvisation, to tactics that make no sense until they work." A woman in a U.S. Air Force uniform leaned forward. "You want us to teach you guerrilla warfare, asymmetric tactics, how to fight dirty?" "Yes," Yenna said simply. "And then I want you to fight alongside us, show us how to be unpredictable, how to win when we shouldn't." The humans exchanged glances, some excited, some skeptical, all interested. "What's the catch?" asked the Chinese general. "You rejected us before, now you need us. What changed?" "We were arrogant," Yenna admitted. "We looked at your technology and saw primitives. We didn't look at your tactics, your creativity, your refusal to accept defeat even when it's logical. That was a mistake." "Damn right it was," muttered someone in the back. A British officer spoke up. "Assuming we agree, what's the timeline? How long do we have to prepare?" "The Collective is advancing toward the inner systems. At their current pace, they'll reach Empire core worlds in 6 months. We need you operational in 3. 3 months, someone laughed. "Captain, we'd need years to develop space-worthy military forces, training, equipment, logistics." "We provide all of that," Yenna interrupted. "Ships, weapons, training facilities, everything. You provide the minds and the methods. We need human thinking, not human technology." The room erupted in conversation. Questions, concerns, possibilities. Yenna let them debate. This was apparently how humans processed big decisions, loud and chaotic. Finally, Secretary General Chen held up his hand for silence. "Captain Yenna, would you give us some time to discuss this privately?" "Of course." She left the room and waited in an adjacent corridor. Through the walls, she could hear muffled arguing. Humans apparently disagreed about everything. 30 minutes later, Chen emerged. "We have conditions," he said. "Name them." "First, this is a partnership. Not you hiring mercenaries. We want equal say in strategy and tactics." Yenna nodded. "Agreed, that's the whole point." Second, Earth gets full membership in the Galactic Empire after this is over. No more rejections. I can't authorize that, but I'll personally recommend it to the Council. Third, full technology sharing, not just weapons, medicine, energy, everything. We help you win this war, we get to advance our civilization in return. That would be controversial. Given the circumstances. Agreed. Chen studied her for a moment. You really think we can make a difference against this collective? Secretary General, the collective has conquered 23 species, each one more advanced than yours. Each one fell because they fought logically and the collective learned their logic. You don't fight logically. You fight to win, logic be damned. Yes, I think you can make a difference. Chen smiled. Then Earth is in. When do we start? The next 3 months were chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Yenna brought in Galactic Empire training ships, hundreds of them, each one filled with technology humanity had only dreamed about, faster-than-light drives, energy weapons, shield generators, medical bays that could heal anything short of death. Thousands of human military personnel cycled through training programs, learning to operate alien technology, learning to fight in three-dimensional space instead of on planetary surfaces. But the real revolution happened when human tacticians started working with Empire strategists. This makes no sense, Commander Vril complained, staring at a human battle plan. You want to fake a retreat, lure the collective forces into pursuit, then have our ships exit hyperspace behind them. It's a classic pincer movement, explained Colonel Martinez, a U.S. Marine with 20 years of combat experience. You make them think they're winning, get them overconfident. Then spring the trap. But the collective will see through this. They'll analyze our retreat pattern and realize it's fake. Will they, though? Martinez grinned. Because we're not going to retreat in any pattern. Some ships will run immediately. Some will fight first. Some will transmit distress calls. Others will go silent. We'll make it look like panic, like genuine chaos. They won't know what's real and what's theater. Vril's scales rippled with confusion. But that means some of our ships will actually be in danger, genuinely under attack while pretending to retreat. Yeah, that's insane. That's asymmetric warfare, Commander. You sell the deception by making it partly real. If everything looks too perfect, too choreographed, the enemy suspects a trap. You need some actual chaos mixed in to hide the planned chaos. Vril looked at Yenna. Captain, this violates about 15 tactical doctrines. Good, Yenna said. File it as a human exception and approve it. Similar conversations happen across a dozen training facilities. Human instructors teaching Empire officers to break rules they'd spent centuries following. Stop thinking about honor, a British SAS officer told a group of Kelonian warriors. I know your culture values fair combat, forget it. Your enemy doesn't care about honor, they care about winning. So do whatever works, cheat, lie, fight dirty, win. But the Empire's military code is why you're losing. The collective doesn't follow your code, they don't fight fair, so stop handicapping yourselves with rules the enemy ignores. It was a hard lesson. Many Empire officers struggled with it. They'd been trained to fight with honor, with dignity, with respect for ancient protocols. Humans had been trained to survive, and survival didn't care about honor. But slowly it started to work. Empire officers began thinking differently, questioning assumptions, considering options they'd never allowed themselves before, and the humans, they took to space warfare like they'd been born for it. This is amazing, Lieutenant Sarah Chen said, piloting an Empire fighter through a training course. No gravity, no atmosphere, three-dimensional combat with no up or down, it's like the ultimate dogfight. Her instructor, a veteran Valorian pilot, watched her scores with something like awe. You're exceeding veteran pilots with decades of experience. After only 6 weeks of training. We've been dreaming about this our whole lives, Chen said, executing a maneuver that should have been impossible. Every science fiction story, every space movie, every video game, we've been mentally preparing for space combat since we were kids. The instructor realized something then. Humans had been running combat simulations in their entertainment for generations. Millions of them playing war games, testing tactics, learning to think in 3 dimensions. They called it playing, it was actually training. Finally, after 12 weeks of intensive preparation, Yenna assembled the first joint task force. 30 Empire ships, 5,000 human personnel integrated throughout. a mix of species and tactics that had never been tried before. "This is Task Force Chaos," she announced to the assembled crews, "and we're about to show the collective something they've never seen before. Questions?" A human sergeant raised her hand. "Captain, what's our primary objective?" "Survive the first engagement," Yenna said honestly. "Then adapt, learn, improvise. We're not following standard battle doctrine because standard doctrine doesn't work anymore. We're making this up as we go." "Music to my ears," the sergeant grinned. They jumped to hyperspace 3 days later, heading toward a system under collective attack. A mining colony on Thresh Prime, 3 million civilians, 12 hours until the collective arrived. In the old days, the Empire would have assembled a defensive fleet, set up formation, waited for the enemy, fought by the book. Not anymore. "All ships scatter formation," Yenna ordered. "I want random positioning, make it look like we're evacuating civilians and just happen to have some warships present. No defensive line, no obvious strategy." "Captain," Vril said nervously, "this makes us look weak, disorganized." "That's the idea, Commander. Let them think we're easy prey." The collective fleet dropped out of hyperspace right on schedule. 15 heavy cruisers, 50 fighters, more than enough to overwhelm Task Force Chaos in a conventional fight. They saw the scattered Empire ships and did exactly what Yenna hoped. They assumed it was a simple evacuation. Easy targets, they attacked. "Wait for it," Yenna murmured, watching the collective forces accelerate toward them. "Wait for it." The collective ships closed to optimal firing range. Locked weapons. Prepared to annihilate the scattered defenders. "Now," Yenna said calmly, everything changed. The civilian transports weren't transports. They were Q ships, armed freighters with hidden weapons. They opened fire at point-blank range, catching the collective completely off guard. The fighters that seemed to be fleeing suddenly reversed course, coming at the enemy from unexpected angles. The capital ships that appeared damaged and listing suddenly brought all systems online and fired full broadsides. And through it all, human voices coordinated the chaos, calling targets, adjusting positions, making split-second decisions that made no sense until they worked. "Collective cruiser trying to adapt," reported a human tactical officer. "They're analyzing our attack pattern." "Pattern Charlie," Yenna ordered. Immediately, every ship changed tactics. The coordinated attack dissolved into what looked like complete chaos, ships firing independently, taking random vectors. No discernible strategy at all, except there was a strategy, hidden in the noise. Ships weren't actually random. They were covering each other, creating overlapping fields of fire, setting up the collective for the next surprise. The collective couldn't adapt. Every time they started to recognize a pattern, it changed. Every time they tried to predict human tactics, the humans did something completely different. "They're breaking formation," Vril reported, astonishment in his voice. "The collective is retreating." "Pursue," Yenna ordered. "Don't let them regroup." Task Force Chaos chased the collective out of the system, first victory against them in 8 months. As the last enemy ship jumped to hyperspace, Yenna allowed herself to smile. "Captain," Vril said quietly, "we just won using tactics that shouldn't work, that violate every principle of space combat." "Welcome to human warfare, Commander," Yenna replied, "where the only rule is winning." Word of the victory spread fast. Across the Empire, commanders studied the engagement. Some were horrified, others were intrigued, all of them wanted to know more. Admiral Zexther called Yenna personally. "One battle doesn't win a war," he said, "but it proves the concept works. I'm authorizing expansion, 10 more task forces, full integration with human tacticians. And Captain." "Yes, Admiral. You're being promoted. You're now in charge of all human integration programs. Teach the Empire how to fight like humans. We're going to need it." Yenna looked at her crew. Empire officers and human soldiers working side by side, different species, different backgrounds, united by one goal, survival. "Understood, Admiral. We'll be ready." 6 months after the victory at Thresh Prime, the war looked completely different. 10 task forces had become 50. Human advisors served on nearly every Empire warship. And the collective was learning what the rest of the galaxy already knew: humans were trouble. Captain Yenna, now promoted to Commodore, stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Indomitable, a massive dreadnought that combined Empire technology with human tactical philosophy. Her crew was mixed: Valorians, Kelonians, humans, half a dozen other species, all trained in what they now called chaos doctrine. Commodore incoming transmission from Admiral Zexther, her communications officer reported. Priority Alpha. Yenna pulled up the hologram. The Admiral looked tired, older than when she'd last seen him. War did that. Commodore, we have a situation. When don't we? Yenna replied. A ghost of a smile crossed Zexther's face. Fair point, but this is different. The collective is moving on Zentara. Yenna's stomach dropped. Zentara, the Empire's shipbuilding center. Lose that and they'd lose the ability to replace losses. The war would be over. How long do we have? 4 days. They're bringing everything, 300 ships, maybe more. It's their largest offensive yet. How many can we field? 200, and that's stripping defenses from other systems. Yenna did the math. Even with human tactics, those odds were bad. The collective could afford to take losses, learn from them, adapt. Eventually, they'd figure out how to counter human unpredictability. We need to do something they absolutely won't expect, she said slowly. Something so crazy they can't adapt because it makes no sense. I'm listening. Yenna pulled up a tactical map, studied it. Zentara sat at the edge of a massive asteroid field, dense, unstable, navigation hazard that everyone avoided. An idea started forming, terrible idea, insane idea, exactly the kind of idea that might work. Admiral, what if we don't defend Zentara? Silence. Then, explain. The collective expects a massive defensive fleet, standard tactics. We hold the line until reinforcements arrive or we're destroyed. That's what any logical species would do. Yes. So we do the opposite. We evacuate Zentara, make it look like we're abandoning it, let the collective take it. Commodore, you're suggesting we hand them our primary shipyard. No, sir. I'm suggesting we lure them into the biggest trap in galactic history. She explained her plan. With every word, Zexther's expression shifted from confused to horrified to something like admiration. This is insane, he finally said. Yes, sir. It violates approximately every military regulation ever written. Yes, sir. If it fails, we lose the war. If we fight conventionally, we lose anyway. At least this way we've got a chance. Zexther was quiet for a long moment. You've been spending too much time with humans, Commodore. I consider that a compliment, sir. Was meant as one, you have authorization, and Commodore, don't get killed. The Empire needs officers who can think like you. I'll do my best, Admiral. The transmission ended. Yenna turned to her crew. All hands, we're about to attempt something that's either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. Who wants to help me explain it to the fleet? A human lieutenant named Jackson raised his hand. Permission to be excited, ma'am. Permission granted, Lieutenant. We're going to need that enthusiasm. The plan was simple in concept, impossible in execution. First, evacuate Zentara. Every civilian, every worker, make it loud, make it obvious. Let the collective see the Empire abandoning one of its most valuable assets. Second, rig the entire shipyard with delayed explosives, not enough to destroy it, just enough to damage key systems when the time was right. Third, hide the entire fleet inside the asteroid field. 200 ships powered down to minimal signatures. Waiting. Fourth, let the collective take Zentara. Let them think they'd won. Let them bring their forces into the system and start celebrating, then spring the trap. This requires perfect timing, Commander Vril said, reviewing the plan. If we move too early, they'll detect us and adapt. Too late, and they'll fortify the position. Which is why humans are handling coordination, Yenna replied. Your species thinks in terms of optimal timing, calculated precision. Humans think in terms of gut instinct and chaos. For this to work, we need both. Lieutenant Jackson was already working with the navigation teams. The asteroid field is going to be the tricky part. These rocks are moving constantly, colliding, fragmenting. We can't predict safe paths more than a few hours in advance. So we don't, said a human pilot named Tors. We react in real time, like threading a needle while the needle's moving. We train for this kind of flying. You train to fly through unstable asteroid fields at combat speeds. We train to fly through anything at any speed. It's kind of our thing. The evacuation of Zentara took 2 days. Civilian transports jumping to hyperspace in streams, broadcasting distress signals, making it obvious the Empire was retreating. Collective scouts watched from a distance, recording everything, reporting back. Yena monitored their communications. They're buying it. They think we're running scared. We are running scared, Vril muttered. Just not in the direction they think. Day 3, the fleet moved into position. 200 warships navigating into the asteroid field, slowly, carefully, finding hiding spots among the tumbling rocks. Humans piloted most of the ships now. Empire officers were skilled, but humans had something else. They'd grown up playing video games, racing simulators, combat sims. Their brains were wired for this kind of flying. Contact, sensors reported. Collective Fleet Entering System confirmed 300-plus vessels. On the displays, Yena watched the enemy arrive. They moved confidently, no scouts ahead, no cautious approach. They thought this was over. The collective forces surrounded Zentara, landed occupation troops, started integrating the shipyard into their network. They're taking the bait, Jackson said quietly. Now we wait, Yena replied. Let them get comfortable. 6 hours passed. The collective fleet settled into standard occupation formation. Defensive but not expecting attack. Why would they? The Empire had fled. Multiple collective ships docking at the shipyard, sensors reported. They're beginning integration protocols. Perfect. The more ships that connected to Zentara, the better. All ships status check, Yena ordered. Reports came back. 50 task forces, all hidden, all ready, waiting for the signal. Yena pulled up a private channel to Admiral Zexther. We're in position. Collective is committed, ready to execute on your order. Commodore, I want you to know something before this begins. Regardless of outcome, what you've done here matters. You've changed how the Empire thinks, how we fight. That legacy will outlive all of us. Thank you, sir, but I prefer we all outlive the collective instead. A dry laugh. Fair enough. You are authorized to engage. Good hunting. Yena switched to fleet-wide communications. All ships, this is Commodore Yena. Execute Operation Anvil. Human coordinators, you have tactical control. Show them what chaos really means. Roger that, Commodore, came Jackson's voice. All ships, light them up on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. 200 ships powered up simultaneously, engines flaring, weapons charging, emerging from the asteroids like predators from cover. The collective fleet had seconds to react. Not enough time. Task Force Chaos hit first. Yena's ships screaming out of the asteroid field at maximum acceleration, targeting the collective command ships with concentrated fire. Other task forces followed different vectors. No coordination, no formation, just pure aggressive chaos hitting from every direction. Collective forces attempting to adapt, Vril reported. They're analyzing our attack patterns. Pattern shift, Yena ordered. All human coordinators go random, no structure, just create havoc. The Empire fleet dissolved into apparent madness. Ships broke formation, took individual vectors, fired at opportunity targets instead of assigned ones. It looked like panic, like complete loss of control. It was actually brilliant. The collective couldn't find a pattern because there wasn't one. Every ship operated independently, making split-second decisions, creating a combat environment so chaotic that analysis was impossible. Collective flagship trying to retreat, sensors called out. Tors, you're up, Jackson said. Copy that, came the pilot's voice. Going weapons hot. A single fighter detached from the fleet, Tors flying like she was possessed, weaving through enemy fire, using asteroids as cover, moving in ways that should have been impossible. She reached the collective flagship and did something no sane pilot would attempt. She landed on its hull. Package delivered, Tors reported calmly. Evacuating. Her fighter launched away just as the electromagnetic pulse bomb she'd planted detonated. The collective flagship's shields collapsed. Systems failed, dead in space. That's our cue, Yena said. All ships focus fire on the flagship. Concentrated fire from 50 ships hit the disabled dreadnought. It lasted maybe 10 seconds before exploding. The collective fleet hesitated. For the first time in the war, they showed something like confusion. Their command structure was gone. Their tactical network disrupted. Now, Yena said quietly, activate the shipyard charges. At Zentara, carefully placed explosives detonated, not destroying the facility, just damaging critical systems. Every collective ship docked there suddenly found themselves caught in power surges, system failures, catastrophic malfunctions. 20 collective ships went dark, trapped at the shipyard they thought was their prize. They're breaking formation, Vril reported. Full retreat. Pursue, Yenna ordered. Don't let them regroup. The battle turned into a running fight, collective ships fleeing, Empire forces chasing, using the asteroid field's chaos to pick off stragglers. Human pilots excelled here, flying through impossible spaces, taking risks that made Vril's scales turn pale but getting results. Commodore were getting multiple surrender signals, communications reported. Collective ships requesting quarter. Yenna paused. The collective didn't surrender. They fought to destruction or retreated. This was new. Confirm those signals, she ordered. Confirmed. 18 ships requesting permission to power down and await capture. Something had changed. The collective was adapting again, but not to human tactics, to human psychology. They were learning that humans sometimes showed mercy. That surrender was an option. Grant them terms, Yenna decided. But keep weapons locked. If this is a trick, I want to be ready. It wasn't a trick. 18 collective vessels powered down, let themselves be boarded. Their crews showed something the Empire had never seen before: fear. They're terrified, reported the boarding team leader. Not of dying, of us, of how we fight. They're saying we're unpredictable, dangerous, that facing humans is like fighting chaos itself. Yenna felt a chill. They'd wanted to be unpredictable, to fight in ways the collective couldn't counter, but they'd done something more. They'd broken the collective's confidence. Made them doubt their own superiority. Secure the prisoners, she ordered. Treat them according to Empire law, no retaliation, no revenge. We win with honor even if we fight without it. The battle wound down. Collective forces scattered, jumping to hyperspace in every direction. Running, the Empire had won. Not just the battle, the system, the shipyard, everything, and something more important, momentum. Final casualty report, Vril said quietly. 17 ships destroyed. 43 damaged, estimated 3,000 casualties. Heavy losses, but considering the odds, miraculous. Commodore, I'm receiving reports from across the Empire, communications said. Other collective forces are retreating, pulling back from multiple systems. It's like they're consolidating. They're scared, Jackson said simply. We just handed them their biggest defeat of the war with half their numbers. They need time to process what that means. Yenna nodded slowly. Contact Admiral Zexther. Tell him we've secured Zentara, and tell him I want to meet with all human military advisors. We need to plan the next phase. The next phase, Vril asked. Commander, we've been reacting to collective attacks for months, playing defense, trying to stop them. That changes now. We take the fight to them. A week later, Yenna stood before the Empire Council, the same council chamber where Admiral Zexther had first proposed recruiting humans. But everything felt different now. The council members looked at her with respect, even awe. She'd done the impossible, one when defeat seemed certain. Commodore Yenna, council leader Prax began, your victory at Zentara has given the Empire hope, more than hope, a path forward. The council wishes to discuss expansion of human integration programs. With respect, council leader, I think we need to discuss something else first. Surprised murmurs. Oh, we need to talk about Earth's membership in the Empire. They've more than proven themselves, they've saved us, and they deserve recognition. Prax exchanged glances with other council members. The council agrees. Earth will be granted full membership with all rights and privileges. Additionally, we're establishing the Human Tactical Academy to train all Empire forces in these new doctrines. There's more, Yenna continued. The humans have taught us how to fight unpredictably, but they've also taught us something deeper. They've shown us that survival requires adaptability, creativity, willingness to break our own rules when necessary. That's not just a military lesson, it's a philosophical one. You're saying we've been too rigid, Prax said slowly. I'm saying we've been too comfortable, too confident in our superiority. The collective nearly destroyed us because we couldn't imagine fighting any way except our way. Humans don't have that limitation. They'll try anything, be anyone, do whatever works. That's their real weapon, not tactics, adaptability. The council was quiet for a long moment. The Commodore makes a valid point, said Ambassador Thriss. We rejected humans because they seemed primitive, chaotic, dangerous, but those qualities are exactly what saved us. So what do you propose? Prax asked. I propose we stop viewing chaos as weakness, Yenna said. Start seeing it as strength, not just in military matters, in everything, research, government, culture. Let different species contribute their unique perspectives instead of forcing everyone to conform to Empire standards. You're describing a revolution in how the Empire functions, Prax said. Yes, a necessary one. The collective showed us that our old ways don't work anymore. We either adapt or we die. More silence. Then Prax smiled. You've definitely been spending too much time with humans, Commodore. Very well. The Council authorizes a committee to explore these reforms. You'll head it. Sir, I'm a military officer, not a politician. You're a visionary who's proven she can implement radical change, exactly what we need. Besides, the humans respect you. We'll need their continued cooperation to make this work. Yenna realized she'd just been promoted again, sort of. She wasn't sure this was an improvement over commanding a fleet. 3 months later, the war reached its turning point. The Empire launched its first major offensive, 50 task forces, human coordinated, striking collective territory from multiple directions simultaneously. But this wasn't just a military operation. It was a demonstration. Every tactic, every innovation, every impossible maneuver, all designed to send a message. The Empire had learned. The Empire had adapted. The Empire was dangerous now. Collective forces tried to counter. They'd spent months analyzing human tactics, building countermeasures, predicting patterns. It didn't work. Because humans weren't using the same tactics. They'd invented new ones, crazier ones, even less predictable. They're using children's games as battle strategies, a stunned collective commander reported. Something called Capture the Flag, and another called musical chairs. How do we counter children's games? They couldn't, that was the point. Humans pulled tactical inspiration from everywhere: history, fiction, sports, games. Nothing was off limits. If an idea might work, they tried it. And when it didn't work, they tried something else. No pride, no shame, just constant experimentation. The collective started making mistakes, real mistakes. Their perfect adaptation had a flaw. They needed patterns to analyze. Without patterns, they were just another military force, and not a particularly creative one. System after system fell to Empire forces, not quickly, not easily, but steadily. Inevitable. 6 months after Zentara, the collective sued for peace. Yenna attended the negotiations. So did representatives from every Empire species, including a large human delegation led by Secretary General Chen. The collective's negotiator was something between an ambassador and a computer, partially organic, partially machine, mostly confused. We don't understand, it said. You shouldn't have one. We adapted to every tactic, learned every strategy, predicted every pattern, yet you kept defeating us. That's because you were looking for patterns, Chen replied. Humans don't do patterns, we do chaos, we improvise. Every battle is different because we make it different. But that's inefficient, wasteful, illogical. Maybe, but it works. The negotiator was silent for a moment. We wish to understand, to learn, not to conquer, to adapt. Then adapt to this, Yenna said. Diversity isn't weakness, it's strength. Different species think differently, fight differently, create differently. Instead of trying to assimilate everyone into one collective mind, try learning from different perspectives. That contradicts our fundamental nature. Then maybe your fundamental nature needs updating, Chen suggested. We're offering peace, trade, cultural exchange. You'll learn more from cooperation than conquest. Another long pause. We accept your terms, but we request something additional. What? Permission to send observers to study humanity, to understand how you think, how you create, how you survive despite apparent inefficiency. Yenna and Chen exchanged glances. We can arrange that, Chen said, but it goes both ways. We send observers to your territory too, learn about you, maybe find common ground. Agreed. The peace treaty was signed 3 days later. The war was over. A year after that, Yenna retired from military service, sort of. She spent half her time teaching at the Human Tactical Academy, the other half consulting on Empire reforms. The changes were working, slowly, but working. Different species were encouraged to maintain their unique cultures, to contribute ideas that didn't fit Empire norms, to experiment, to innovate. The Empire was becoming more human, more chaotic, more unpredictable, more alive. Yenna stood on Earth for the first time, New York City, millions of humans rushing around, building, creating, arguing, living. Secretary General Chen joined her on the observation deck. What do you think? It's chaotic, Yenna said. That's our specialty. I used to think chaos was something to avoid, to control, to eliminate. Now I understand it's just another form of order, more complex, less predictable, but with its own logic. Took us a few thousand years to figure that out ourselves, Chen admitted. Welcome to the club. Yenna watched the city, so much energy, so much potential, so much creativity packed into one small planet. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For saving us, for teaching us, for showing us there's more than one way to survive. Chen smiled. Thank you for giving us a chance, for looking past our primitiveness and seeing our potential. Not many species would do that. We were desperate. You were smart. Desperation makes people do desperate things. You did the right thing instead, found allies who could help, worked together despite differences. That's wisdom, not desperation. Below them, a human child ran past, laughing, playing, completely unaware that his species had just saved a galactic empire. What happens now? Yenna asked. Now we live, Chen said simply. We build, we explore, we create, same as always, except now we do it with friends across the galaxy. And if another threat emerges, another enemy, then we deal with it together, using creativity and chaos and whatever else works. That's the human way. And now it's the Empire way too. Yenna nodded. I can live with that. Good. Because I'm pretty sure you're stuck with us now, she laughed. A sound she'd been making more often lately. Humans were infectious that way. Somewhere across the galaxy, the Empire continued its work, building, growing, changing, and at the heart of it all was a simple truth, one that humans had known all along. Survival wasn't about being the strongest, or the smartest, or the most advanced. It was about being adaptable, creative, willing to try new things even when they seemed crazy. It was about embracing chaos and finding opportunity in unpredictability. It was about being human. And now, thanks to Earth, the entire galaxy was learning what that meant.